that don't know me, I know, you know, there's a few, probably half the group that knows me, but for those that don't know me, I'm a family man. I'm married to Adriana and have Sophia, who's 10, and Ollie, who's 7. And in terms of my background, I didn't start as a clinical nutritionist. I started out as a chemical engineer. I did about 15 years in the corporate world. And then decided to follow my passion, which is health and wellness. So I went back and did 2 more degrees, and here I am today, happily doing what I love. So that's a bit of, in terms of stress, I think it's important to acknowledge the stress sources, and I know Mary did, but certainly, you know, when I see clients, they often tell me they're not stressed, and then I look at their, I guess, presenting symptoms and look at their bloods and everything, and you can tell they're stressed. And so I think there's, you know, a bit of a disconnection as to what people perceive as stressors on them. And it's, you know, it's not just mental and emotional. Some people can feel fine mentally and emotionally, but there's the physical stressors, which I have listed here. And then there's the chemical stressors, which come from the environment. So we are surrounded in stress, regardless of whether we're feeling it ourselves. We do have, and, you know, one of the biggest stressors is our mobile phones or electromagnetic frequencies. They're constantly around us, you know, and 5G is emerging now, and that's going to bombard us even more. So we're certainly, our body is under a lot of stress, and certainly a lot more than what we've ever been historically. And so linking stress to nutrition, there's a strong link, and the research shows this. It shows that in terms of the types of diets we live, the Western diet is very acidic. I'll cover off what acidic diet is, but certainly the research shows Western type of diet. And this leads on to some of these real recent statistics that were published, and, you know, and it's associated with kids' health, and it's also affecting adults in a big way. But, you know, when you look at, you know, how strongly is it correlated to diet, and you can see here that certainly a high acidic load within children resulted in a 33% higher risk of emotional problems, fears, worries, downward, you know, mood, and 22% higher risk of poor attention. So that shows that there's a strong correlation. Furthermore, the research shows that people that are depressed are commonly deficient in magnesium, which is a mineral we get from food, and in particular, foods like I have here on the right, dark leafy green vegetables. Zinc is another one that's linked to depression. B vitamin deficiencies, vitamin D is what commonly comes up into the research. And then there's the emerging research around gut health and the connection with the brain. So those that suffer anxiety, depression, often have IBS-like symptoms, irritable bowel syndrome. And so there's a direct correlation between, and, you know, those suffering IBS often experience some anxiety. So there's a direct correlation there, and there's more and more emerging research on gut health and how it affects our brain. So what can we do about it? Well, there's obviously foods to avoid, and there's lifestyle factors. So we understand there's a strong correlation, and probably the strongest correlation is with the lack of connection. But that's what I'm not talking about today, but there's certainly, I wanted to acknowledge that there's a very strong connection with the lack of connection, and hence emerging from COVID, there's great concerns about, you know, people that were already isolated are feeling more isolated than ever. Hence why the government's putting a lot of money towards mental health. The other one is lack of stress regulation. So just our lifestyles, and Mary covered that a lot in the previous session, but there's, you know, things that we can do around that. I mentioned the correlation with high acidic diets, and so where does acidity come from our diets? And this is not how foods taste. So it's not apple cider vinegar. It's not vinegar. It's not your citrus fruits. It's not lemon or whatever. But it's how they metabolize, how our body breaks them down, and what those metabolites are. Whether they're, acidic or are they alkaline. And so protein, for example, metabolizes, breaks down as acidic. So Western diets have far too much protein. It's just excessive. Like you go to the pub and you'll get half a plate of meat, and it's way in excess of our needs. Excessive fat consumption, and again, this goes back to takeaway foods, junk foods, have all this saturated fat. Excessive cheese consumption, that's very acidic. Pizzas smothered in cheese. Sugars, obviously a big contributing factor, and again, the Western diet is full of sugar. And then there's the obvious ones such as alcohol. So alcohol for many reasons, but for example, it's a diuretic, so it makes us urinate more frequently, and so B vitamins, which are associated with good mental health, are water soluble, and so when we're urinating a lot, we're flushing out our water-soluble vitamins like the B vitamins. We're flushing out our minerals such as magnesium and zinc, and they're all associated with good mental health. And then there's the excessive processed foods. So probably no surprises there. Okay, so what should we focus more on in order to get a less acidic diet, more alkaline diet? Fresh fruit and vegetables will increase the alkalizing. Oh, what happened there? So eating lots of fresh fruit and vegetables. I'm going to go into how much you should be eating, but certainly a lot more than what the Western diet has in it. And these are packed of magnesium, folate, vitamin C, and phytochemicals. So that's the it's like your flavonoids. It's the things that they associate, like, what are the positives about drinking red wine? Well, it's the phytochemicals from the grape. But you're far better to eat the grapes than drink the red wine to get that phytochemical. And then there's the nuts and seeds, which are, again, rich in these minerals and B vitamins. We don't eat enough in the Western diet. And of course, don't forget the sunshine. We're very much adverse to sunshine because of the rates of skin cancer in Australia. But the pendulum swung too far. We're actually so far, removing ourselves from the sun that we're vitamin D deficient. And it's one of the most commonly things that doctors see in bloods is vitamin D deficiency, and particularly in children. And it's so essential for not only immune health, but for bone health, and for absorption of calcium. So we do need our vitamin D, and it's essential for our health. It's essential for serotonin production, which is our feel-good neurotransmitter. So what should our diet better look like, and not like the Western diet, which is very acidic? So there's, the Mediterranean diet, which is probably the most studied diet, and the research on the Mediterranean diet is compelling in terms of positive mental health associations with, managing your weight well. So, you don't need to go on the ketone diet and all these other extreme sort of diets, which excludes food groups. You can stick with this very traditional, well-researched diet, such as the Mediterranean diet. And as you can see here, you look at the pyramid, it's very much the Western diet on its head, or turned upside down. It's vegetables and fruit at the base. You have got your whole grains, your beans, your legumes, you got your fish. But at the top here, which the Western diet seems to be predominantly meat, dairy, and eggs, is at the very top. So, the Mediterranean diet, which has proven health benefits, seldom eat meat, seldom. And so we eat way too much, and we need to go to more plant-based, more variety to support our positive gut health. And so, you know, what does that look like? Well, you want to chase the colours of the rainbow in every aspect. In terms of the vegetables you buy, get lots of colours. Make sure you've got colours in that. Lots of colours in your fruit, lots of variety. And then, yes, you do need some protein, and the protein is going to come from a third of the plate, not half the plate. And that's, you know, and you want to, you know, try to bring in as much plant-based protein. So that's your grains, nuts, seeds. And then supplement that with fish, and then occasionally dairy and meat, as opposed to everyday dairy and meat. So that's really what I'm covering off today. And this is how you can connect with me, and I'm more than happy if we've got time to answer any questions. It's up to the timekeeper.